But of course, it's the big globalist organizations that are creating many of the policies. And you've been having a look at the World Economic Forum.
Good day again, gentlemen. The World Economic Forum, of course, conducts that annual meeting in Davos. And I've got a few slides to show, not too many. And I had to focus on AI. There's a lot you can look at. So breaking it down, the rapid growth of artificial intelligence has raised critical questions. And they have asked some good questions at WEF. And we'll move on from there. Given that AI will impact our societies and industries, what solutions, dialogue, and education are needed? All generally good questions, good things to explore. And we do have a video clip coming up. This is Alexandra Reeve given. She does make some good points, but then I've got some other context to share that will paint a broader picture.
A second area that we need to think about is surveillance. How much easier it becomes for governments to surveil their populations, particularly in regimes that have poor human rights records or authoritarian regimes. Face recognition technology, we all know what that is. That is AI powered, right? The way that that system is trained and it learns. We've seen that deployed to surveil protests, to identify suspects in a protest so that they can be pulled out, to caution people against protesting and participating in those public spaces.
So you can see that there are some good points raised there, but if you look at it contextually, you can pick out some things, especially things that aren't shown on the video. For example, she said that those other regimes, those authoritarian regimes, they might misuse AI. She's making that initial bias, that fundamental bias that's very common at the WEF, that it's only the other guys, Viktor Orban's Hungary, Vladimir Putin's Russia, and so on, that will abuse these things. It could never be the EU. It could never be the United States. It could never be Britain. And so those are valid concerns, but the context is very important. Some of the other comments briefly, there was a futurist and Black investor, Will I Am. He goes by that name, Will I Am. And he said things like, the AI will be a whole new way to unearth tomorrow's industries, because we know AI is going to topple today's industries. And there's other questions, Uber drivers, bean counters at financial institutions, various clerks, their jobs will be gone under AI. There's different ramifications for that. AI mimics, but it does not really futurize. It can't imagine. So they're calling on the young of the world, the youth of the world, to combine their inherent, innate imagination with AI, things like that. Mr. Gupta talked about, this is Himanshu Gupta. He's an Indian AI expert. Himanshu Gupta, he talked about farmers being able to get drought-resistant seeds cheaper and faster with the use of AI. There may be some advantages there, and so on. Many other things. There's concern that people whose financial benefits and eligibility is based on AI may lose their benefits because AI will misread their background. So there is a palpable and maybe sufficient concern being expressed at the World Economic Forum about the pitfalls of AI. But on the other hand, there's this kind of mindset that AI has to be adopted in its entirety, and that we simply have to navigate the choppy waters of dealing with all the ramifications, especially the negatives, of course. So it's a full embrace of AI. And the inherent bias that I talked about creates a lot of problems, because only those other countries, only those authoritarian regimes would abuse it. And the EU couldn't possibly be authoritarian, neither could the US nor Britain. And we have another slide here. This is an aspect of AI that's perhaps being overlooked. In the movie WarGames, released in June 1983 in the US, the lead character, a skilled teen computer hacker played by Matthew Broderick, inadvertently hacks into Joshua, an AI computer trained to fight nuclear war games, but Joshua thinks the games are real. So when the character in the movie begins to engage with Joshua, Joshua actually starts a scenario that all the nuclear powers on their surveillance screens, on their monitoring screens, thinks is real. And I wrote an article a few years back, Brian, and I'm going to get this for next week, I believe. There's already been a lot of studies and contemplation and developments of prototypes of computers that would fight war automatically, that would fight war without much human intervention, other than the initial input of data, which is a lot like Joshua in the WarGames movie. So the WarGames fiction could become fact if these developments keep going and computers are developed to fight wars on autopilot. And so that's another dimension of this that wasn't really mentioned at the World Economic Forum. And just to wind up, and maybe you guys want to comment, I'll be trying to cover as best I can artificial intelligence and climate change coming up at what's known as the South by Southwest Austin, Texas annual event. Some people call it World Economic Forum Junior. In some aspects, that's true, not in all aspects. But as you can see, artificial intelligence is part of it. They're spending like 5 or 6 days on it and almost as many days on climate change. So there is sort of a similar WEF on my side of the pond. But I don't know if you guys have any comment or questions, either of you guys.
Mark, the only thing I'll say is that the key point you made there, of course, is that the World Economic Forum and these other global powerhouses always regard themselves as being the good guys and anybody who disagrees with them as being the bad guys. I think that was a very key point that you made there. And of course, it's their policy which is controlling a lot of the politicians worldwide.